Welcome, everyone. I am Isaac Schaefer, and with me is a friend and brother in Christ and a colleague, Hunter. And Hunter will tell you a little bit about himself a little bit later, but I want to start off by telling you this is not just one video. This is a series of videos that will hopefully provide answers to questions that you may have had about pornography, lust, illicit affairs, and what goes on, and how you can receive deliverance like we did in Christ Jesus, and so many others have received deliverance from the use, abuse, addictions to pornographic and other forms of sexual deviance, I would say. And so first today in this video, we're going to talk about what is pornography, and then we'll have a dialogue. And so I want to turn to my friend Hunter. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Hunter.
Yeah, well, my name is Hunter, and I used to struggle with pornography. It was a stronghold in my life. Mm-hmm. I was a believer, but I didn't know that I could even be free from it. But the Lord had another plan. Mm-hmm. I had to be obedient to that plan, though. So I found a group of men that I could come alongside, mm-hmm. and together with their support and me learning about what's going on in my mind, mm-hmm. The Lord freed me.
Yeah. So pornography, the word is pornography, pictures, right? And it's not new to our century. It's been around a long time. Back in the days of the early days of the Bible, 2,000 years ago, the Romans had pornography. They were using graphics, and they had what some people call peep shows. The rich guy who owned a mansion or a palace or whatever he owned would invite friends from the community, and they'll eat and have food orgies and then sexual orgies while the other people just watch them. And then you see today, when they found buildings of that era, you'll have graphics of pornographic. And then you go back in our Bible, all the way back to Sodom and Gomorrah, and even before that in the days of Noah. So pornography is not new. And it seemed like from each generation has to deal with this issue of the sexual impulses that affects the whole person. It affects us mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and of course, socially. So let's talk a little bit about what are some of the ways that people get into pornography. Since that you lead a ministry, in your experience with that, what are some ways that people are exposed to pornography?
Sure. Well, I think a common exposure is in your childhood. A friend shows you it. Your parent has a Playboy magazine, mm-hmm. and as a child you see it and you're exposed. For me, I was exposed by a friend, and then that sparked curiosity. And I didn't know what that was at the time, mm-hmm. but I delved into it.
Right. So a lot of things that in our psychosexual development, and that means as a child matures, that's the development and the psychology, how the mind works and thoughts and feelings, and then the biological development. And so there are some ages. One of the ways that the doors to pornography is open for a lot of people is through molestation, through mm-hmm. fondling, touching, words, songs, early childhood. So one person that I was a counselor to a very long time ago, and I would use a pseudonym name. Let's call the person Jay. So Jay was about 5 years of age and watched his mom being physically beaten by her boyfriends, and he would go to his closet and cry. And one day he discovered what they used to call back then Dirty Magazine, and still is. And he would go, and that was his pseudonym at 5. So imagine this. And now Jay is 60. And all of these years dealing with pornography, it didn't get better and easier. Mm-hmm. His wife had gone to his pastor. The pastor called me to see if I can help because she was going to leave because of he was married to the object. And so early childhood is one way. Another person that I'm familiar with and did some work with She was loved by her father and mom, but online at, I think it was about 12, she met this person and started dating this person and got exposed to the images, and that was it. Yeah. So why is pornography a bad thing? In your view, why is it a bad thing? Yeah.
It's a sexual sin. It's a sin against the body. It destroys relationships. It destroys marriages.
Yeah.
And it's a very selfish act.
Okay. So, as a counselor and someone who's studied this for a little bit of time, what I believe, and I think a lot of other counselors also believe the same thing, that pornography, first, it's a moral issue. The Bible gives us some guidelines on this. Moral, thou shalt not. Sexual mores. Okay. So you have a moral issue that you're married, you don't go with other people. That's a moral issue. You don't go having group sex. That's a moral issue called orgies, a moral issue. You don't have sexual relationship with animals. That's a moral issue. But then when a person crosses over and is into pornography, now it becomes in my view, a medical issue and an issue of addiction. And it doesn't mean it's a medical issue that you have to run to a doctor. It means it's a biological. The brain is now rewiring itself dependent on something. So what might the brain, in your view, what is the brain dependent on, or the body dependent on with pornography?
Well, it's exciting. It's something that is engaging. Oxytocin.
Oxytocin. Yeah.
Your brain is firing off, and you're creating new pathways in your brain. And it's not necessarily an addiction right away.
Right.
You know, you might accidentally see it, and you go, "Okay, that was something was wrong about that." Maybe you don't know if you continue going back, and that's when an issue can occur.
So then, when the person goes back, they're rewarding. And in this reward cycle, and then you find a lot of people that factors sort of pop up. For example, stress. They're stressed out, boom, pornography. Some other people who have talked to me about this, they're excited, pornography. And so it becomes a drug. It becomes a self-addiction, so to speak.
For a lot of people, and for me included, you're medicating either some kind of pain, which wasn't me. I wasn't pain that I was medicating, but it was, it actually was pain.
Rewarding? Okay.
Yeah, there was.
Rewarding yourself.
Just remember, there was a pain I had.
Okay.
And that helped relieve that pain temporarily. I mean, for a second. And then after it was over, it was shame and guilt.
Wow.
But you're doing this a lot of people are doing this to medicate because they're hurting.
Right.
And they want to feel better.
Right.
And it makes you feel better for a second. And then the enemy, gives you this thing makes you feel better for a second. And then he doesn't tell you what comes after.
So you raise a couple of important terminologies. Medicated. So medicating to me is that, okay, I have a wound, a flesh wound. So I cleaned it out and I put medication, hopefully it gets healed. And so these are emotional wounds, wounds of rejection. Any other kind of wounds you can think about?
I think wounds of rejection is a very prominent one.
Yeah, that's huge, because the rejection, the value of who we are as a person, and we are rejected by significant persons, a parent, a spouse, a girlfriend, a boyfriend, people in authority, a pastor, people you look up to, and you're rejected, you're no good. And it's a wound. It gets to the self-esteem and your sense of who you are as a person. And other ones is just stress. The stress rises and it builds and you start to jitter. You need a way, an outlet. And so for a lot of people, the outlet could be sports. Others, the outlet is drinking. And today, it may be going to the movies to watch all sorts of things, and including the pornography in movies.
Very prevalent.
Yeah. So what do you think that, go ahead.
Well, it's important. Rejection. Let's talk about that. So I think people, when their father, and I'm speaking to boys.
Okay.
So when a young boy has a father who maybe they don't engage in conversation very much, and then that child doesn't feel like, oh, I can really talk to my father. Maybe the father always tells them, oh, just let it go, just get over it.
Right.
And then the intention is good. The father knows that you don't need to worry about that. Let it go. But the child might begin to feel like, oh, I can't talk to them. I can't bring stuff up. I can't tell them I struggle with pornography. All they're going to tell me, they're either going to chastise me in some way, or they're just going to say,
or moralize, preach at the child, because rather than,
and they're not going to just come along and say, wow, okay, let's talk about this. Let's work through this. It's almost as if it feels like, well, they don't care enough.
Yeah.
And they might care, but it builds up this lie, and we believe that lie.
So in the mind of this child, for example, we're using this child person, that there is a sense of guilt, shame, hurt. There's a sense, and all of us have basic needs, the needs for love, the need for acceptance, the need for safety, the need for security. Those are needs that has been established in us as persons. All of us want love. And you may say love is not a need, but certainly out of this is affection. So we do need affection. So if you think of love as an affection, we need safety, we need security, we need to feel safe and secure. And so these needs are there. And there's another one that I've noticed in my practice, and other people have said the same thing, is the need to be heard. That we have a story, we want to be heard. And if that child or an adult is suppressed, they're not heard, the need doesn't go away.
Right. Well, in the ministry that I'm leading, I focus very strongly to allow people to talk.
Okay.
And they might talk for a while.
Yeah.
But they have a story, they need to tell it, and that might help. It might help. And I want them to feel comfortable.
To
and
vent,
I've received feedback that they say, oh, well, I like that. I can just, I like the dynamic. I like that I can do that. And I've received training that kind of is counter to that.
Yeah.
In a way. And it's more focused. And I think it's just for different types of
and programs. You could have programs that, people want to talk. They want to vent. They want to express. They want validation. That I'm not a weirdo if I think this, right? And you're saying, yeah, I understand, right? But here's another one with rejection is the need for acceptance, the need for approval. One of the things that I want to introduce myself when my children were small, they got a good report card or something like that. We would take them to get gourmet ice cream and where we lived. That was a reward.
Yeah.
We as an adult, we reward ourselves because we want a reward. And so people self-reward today with pornography. Or again, they go to it as a god, as a first source. They're angry, upset, a frustrating day, and they go home or they go to their car, their cell phone, their iPads, or whatever, and go into this because this object there doesn't judge them. They don't criticize. It's just there. And happiness comes in. I say happiness, but not joy, right? Joy comes internally. Happiness is what's happening in a simple way.
And so often we don't think it's a God.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, that's not my God. But who do you go to for comfort?
Yeah.
We idolize those that we go to for comfort, and so God tells us to have no other idols.
Have no other gods, and the idols, don't mess with idols. And so that becomes an idol. On one day, someone took away something that was important to this person, and they had a meltdown. Just imagine a 10-year-old, and you take away his toy or her toy, and they're having a complete meltdown because their world has fallen apart. And taking away the pornography, People have an internal collapse. And so we have to rebuild people. But one last thing before we end this session right here is about validation acceptance. So rejection opens up a lot of emotional wounds inside. And to heal the self, we turn to vices, alcohol, drugs, pornography, whatever it is to heal the pain. But also acceptance. So here you have a child who was rejected by peers and even parents, God forbid. And they go online and they found someone. And what do they find? Acceptance. Oh, you're not a bad person. You're a good person. I find you attractive, or whatever they will say. That's acceptance. And all of us would like to hear nice things said about us. Yeah. And they're lured into issues. So we're going to stop here, but I want to invite you to come to the next session. All you have to do in your YouTube channel or whatever social media is to get the next video in this series, video number 2.